The last text my dad ever sent me was just one question. I never used to check my phone first thing in the morning. I'd wake up, stare at the ceiling for a minute, listen to the city outside my apartment, and mentally prepare myself for another ordinary day. That changed after my dad died. Now the first thing I do when I open my eyes is reach for my phone, half expecting, half hoping, to see his name light up the screen. Every morning for just a second I forget he's gone. And every morning that second ends. The last normal thing my dad ever did was text me during his lunch break. He worked at a small manufacturing plant, the kind of place that smelled like metal and oil, the kind of job that made his hands rough and his back ache, but he never complained. The message was simple, like always. Hey kiddo, you eat today? He'd been asking me that same question since I moved out at 19. Back then I used to roll my eyes at it. Now I'd give anything to see those words pop up again without the ache that followed. I replied that I hadn't eaten yet, but that I would. I even added a smiley face just to reassure him. The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then nothing. I shrugged it off. Dad was busy. Dad was always busy. I went back to my work, unaware that those dots were the last sign of him I'd ever see while he was alive. That night my mom called me, and I knew something was wrong before she even spoke. She didn't say my name right away. She inhaled sharply, like she was standing at the edge of something deep and terrifying. When she finally told me that Dad had collapsed at work, that the paramedics tried, that the hospital tried, that there was nothing anyone could do, my brain rejected it outright. It felt like someone had said the words in a language I didn't understand. I kept waiting for the part where she said it was a mistake. After the call ended, I sat on my bed with my phone in my hands, staring at the last text he sent me. You eat today? I reread it over and over as if the meaning might change, as if it might suddenly say something else. Something like goodbye, something like I love you, something that would make sense. The days that followed blurred together. I traveled home for the funeral. I hugged relatives I barely recognized. I accepted condolences that felt rehearsed, hollow, insufficient. Everyone told me he was proud of me, that he talked about me all the time. That almost broke me more than his absence did. Because I hadn't called as often as I should have. Because I'd been busy. Because I'd assumed there would always be more time. The night after the funeral I couldn't sleep. The house felt wrong without him. Too quiet. His shoes were still by the door. His jacket still hung on the back of the chair. I lay in my childhood bed, staring at the wall, listening for sounds that weren't coming. At some point, without thinking, I opened my phone and scrolled to our text thread. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I didn't plan the message. Just came out. I miss you. The second the message sent, shame washed over me. I told myself I was being childish, that grief was making me do stupid things. I locked my phone and turned onto my side, squeezing my eyes shut. A moment later, my phone buzzed. I wish I could say my first reaction was fear, or disbelief, or shock. But the truth is, it was relief. Pure, overwhelming relief. Because for just one impossible second, my heart believed he was still here. The screen lit up with his name. The message was short. I know. My hands started shaking so violently I had to sit up. I unlocked the phone again, half expecting the message to vanish. It didn't. I checked the timestamp. I checked the contact. I checked everything a dozen times, desperately searching for a rational explanation. There wasn't one. My chest felt tight, like I couldn't quite get enough air. With trembling fingers I typed, "Dad." The reply didn't come right away. Minutes passed. I stared at the screen, my reflection staring back at me. Then the phone buzzed again. I'm here. Just not the way I used to be. I cried harder than I had at the funeral. The sound came out of me raw and broken, like something tearing loose. I didn't know if I was terrified or comforted or losing my mind. Maybe all three. I asked questions. Too many questions. How? Where are you? Are you okay? Are you in pain? He didn't answer those. He never did. Instead, he asked me if I was sleeping enough. If I'd eaten yet. If I was being kind to myself. That became the pattern. He would appear at odd times, always through text, never calls. The messages were brief, familiar, unmistakably him. He never spoke about death or heaven or anything beyond what he used to say when he was alive. It was like he existed in the small spaces between moments, checking in, making sure I was okay. I didn't tell anyone. Not my mom. Not my friends. I was afraid that if I said it out loud, it would disappear. Or worse, that someone would convince me it wasn't real. And maybe it wasn't. Maybe grief had rewired my brain. But the messages knew things my imagination shouldn't have. Things I hadn't thought about in years. Inside jokes. Memories so specific they felt like fingerprints. Weeks passed. Then months. I went back to my apartment. Back to work. Life moved forward in that cruel way it always does. But every now and then my phone would buzz and the world would pause. He reminded me to call my mom. He told me he was proud of me when I got a promotion. He scolded me gently when I skipped meals or stayed up too late. Sometimes the messages came when I needed them most. Once, after a particularly bad day, I sat on my kitchen floor, convinced I was failing at everything. My phone buzzed. "You're doing better than you think," it said. I don't know how long I sat there crying after that. But there was a change I tried not to notice. The messages grew less frequent. The pauses between replies stretched longer. When I asked him if he was leaving, the reply took hours. "Not leaving," he wrote. "Just stepping back." That night, I told him everything I'd been holding inside. How scared I was of losing him again. How angry I was at myself for all the missed calls. How much I still needed him. I didn't stop typing until my hands hurt. When I finally finished, I waited. The reply came just before sunrise. "You don't need me the way you think you do," he wrote. "I was never the strength. You were." Then after a pause, another message. "Live well. Take care of yourself. That's all I ever wanted." I typed "I love you" with tears streaming down my face. The message sent. It stayed on delivered. It never changed. That was the last time he texted me. It's been 2 years since then. I still keep the thread. I still scroll through it on bad days. Sometimes I catch myself typing out messages I never send. Sometimes I swear I feel my phone vibrate when it hasn't. I don't know what those messages were. A miracle. A hallucination. A kindness from a universe that rarely offers them. What I do know is this: I eat more regularly now. I call my mom more often. I try to be gentler with myself. And every time I do, I hear his voice in my head, asking the same simple question he always did. And somehow that's enough to keep me going.